Hello, my name is Larissa Bustillos, and I am doing a presentation on the effects of culture on aging adults for FCS 548. We all have different ideas of what aging is supposed to look like, and we all want to age well. But that begs the question, what does it mean to age well? What does it mean to be successful at growing old? Each culture has its own beliefs and ideas on aging. Depending on the culture, they can be positive or negative, or both. In 2006, 690 million people were over the age of 60, and by the year 2050, that number is supposed to triple to 2 billion, making up 22% of the population. With 22% of the population being elderly, we have to ask ourselves, are they being taken care of? Not only are the number of elderly growing, but the minority population is growing as well. And while they may not be the majority, we have to consider all of the different cultures we have. As mental professionals, it is essential that we understand each individual we work with. And to understand an individual, you have to know their culture, their background. Aging consists of two different processes. The first is primary aging. These are all the symptoms of aging that are visible. These are the universal biological milestones that everyone goes through as they age. However, the secondary aging is each individual experience. Everyone has a different background, a different culture, a different environment. All of it, both processes, both biological and cultural factors influence your attitude and behavior as you age. According to Lockenhoff, social representations theory is the phenomenon when a culture's view on a subject is held as truth by the whole community. These can be beliefs, behaviors, attitudes, and they can even apply to the elderly. In the study done by Lockenhoff, college students from 26 different cultures were studied. The participants were tested on their perceptions of aging, and like the researchers hypothesized, most of the perceptions were consistent in each culture, proving that social representations theory can affect most cultures. Quality of life has also been researched. One such study was conducted by Kalfas, Makarov, Malzahn, and Skevington. They looked at the characteristics of aging to help the process and give life more meaning. Past studies, such as one conducted in the UK, identified relationships, housing, and health as the most important factors that influence aging. In this particular study, the participants completed a cross-sectional survey. Participants in developing countries rated health as their top priority, most likely because they have lower socioeconomic status, while those in more developed countries worried less about their health and culture, probably because they had a higher socioeconomic standing and health was not their top priority. It's been discussed that certain cultures are individualistic while others put emphasis on collectivism. One such culture that focuses on individual success and glorifies youth is America. In 2001, 58% of Japanese adults 60 years and older reported living with family members, while only 17% of Americans reported the same. While America has a variety of different types of people and cultures, Japan's beliefs are mostly rooted in beliefs and ways of living such as the Buddhist, Confucian, and Taoist traditions. These philosophical ways of living venerate aging as a sign of maturity and requires respect. They value aging as a way to gain understanding and accept death as a part of life. An aging adult is called a senin, or a wise sage, and children are expected to respect and care for their elders. In Japan, there are also more defined roles for each family member in their stage of life. They celebrate specific birthdays in old age because of a certain life cycle that was completed, and they even have specific names that revere the elderly. The Japanese culture reveres the elderly as wise and mature people. On the other hand, America was based on the American dream, where anyone can be successful as long as they put in hard work and had motivation. This developed a society where individuals strive to be independent even through old age, and thus the desire to stay young was embedded in society. Researchers believe that the social breakdown syndrome is due to the lack of roles and guidance in society, which leads to negative treatment of the elderly and general lack of knowledge of aging. The study conducted by Kurosawa took a closer look at the differences in perceptions between Japanese and American participants. The study looked at eudaimonic and hedonic aspects of perception and hypothesized that the Japanese culture has a more positive outlook towards aging. This was somewhat supported as more Japanese participants reported higher personal growth than the American participants. However, aging adults in both groups reported higher aspects of well-being than the younger participants, proving that elders from different cultures have the same sense of self-worth. Both Japanese and American participants reported a low sense of purpose in life, most likely due to lack of jobs or family interaction. Overall, the study did not find a significant difference in perceptions of aging between American and Japanese cultures. So though the biological aging process is a universal experience, the secondary process of aging is dependent on the culture and environment of each individual. Unfortunately for many aging adults, growing old can be associated with negative stereotypes, and society as a whole has little to no education on how to treat the elderly. This has created a stigma of growing old and instilled a desire to stay young for as long as possible. Ageism is having prejudice or discrimination against people of a certain age, usually the elderly. There are some cultures that revere and respect the elderly, such as Japanese, but America is largely focused on the youth. The beliefs and attitudes of the culture has an effect of the treatment and well-being of the elderly. Past research has developed 3 stages of aging: the young old, 50 to 60, the middle old, 60s to 70s, and the old old, 80s and 90s. Researchers found that the negative stereotypes were mostly towards the latter group, but when people speak of aging in general, the stereotype is applied to all 3 stages of aging. More positive stereotypes were applied specifically to the first 2 stages when a participant was asked directly. Some of the more common stereotypes include low cognitive functions, physical ability, and social functions. Aging adults are said to have sexless lives, no hearing ability, slow walking ability, and a bad memory. Behavior towards the elder population can be implicit as well as explicit. People tend to change their way of speaking when talking to an aging adult, reverting to baby talk or elder speak. This is shown by using a patronizing tone, conveying to that person that they are not equals. This can be intentional or even unintentional. Behavior and attitude towards the elderly can lead to a lower self-esteem and sense of self-worth, and a feeling of dependency and even humiliation. Aging adults who interacted with participants who used elder speak reported a lack of communication and loss of meaning in the conversation. There has been some research that proved elder speak as a positive way to communicate when giving directions, but overall stereotypes and attitudes of a society affect the way elder people behave and think about themselves. The ideas of a culture can have both a negative or a positive effect on the aging adult population. As a mental health professional, it is essential that you understand each culture you are working with so as to provide better care and help those in need. Caring for aging adults, you have to have cultural awareness as well as cultural sensitivity. Cultural awareness is being attentive and mindful of yourself and others, and that everyone comes from a different cultural and ethnic background. Cultural sensitivity is acknowledging these cultural differences and respecting them rather than judging them. Getting to know culture and background can help provide insight on how to provide care to an aging adult. The principal priority when working with aging adults is for mental health professionals to educate themselves about the different cultures they may be working with. The cultural education of working professionals is crucial to providing the best care for aging adults. There are so many different countries and ethnic groups within those countries. You have to acknowledge and respect the beliefs and living styles of each of these cultures. Something as minimal as eye contact can be vital to making a connection with an aging adult. While in America, for example, it is considered polite to make eye contact, while in other countries it's considered rude or even an act of aggression. There are two models listed in Aging and Ethnicity that can help mental health professionals be prepared and more culturally sensitive to aging adults. The first model is AWARE. A stands for accepting, so you accept one's behavior without judging it based on your own cultural beliefs. W stands for wonder, as in having a curiosity in someone else's culture rather than basing behavior on your own. A stands for ask. You ask what specific behavior means rather than making assumptions. R stands for research. And E stands for explain. Then you explain what behaviors mean in your culture, then demonstrate that behavior so as to help that person understand. The second model is learn. L stands for listening to the person with understanding and compassion. E means elicit ethnically pertinent information and explain how you see things from your side. A is acknowledging the similarities and differences of each of your cultures and respecting both of them. R means recommend all options available to both of you and respect their decision. And N stands for negotiate. So you negotiate a compromise. It's important to keep in mind jokes and stereotypes. Keep these in mind when working with different cultures and be mindful that they can be offensive and off-putting to others. Aging adults want to be treated with respect and with dignity, and in order to do that, you have to be mindful of how they wanted to be treated and in what way. Both of these models can help a professional be more aware and sensitive to another's culture, especially when working with aging adults. We cannot fully deplete negative stereotypes and the stigma that surrounds aging, but we can do our best to combat it in our day-to-day lives. Research has reported a positive correlation between time spent with an elder to a positive attitude towards the elderly. That is, they found that the more time you spend with aging adults, the more positive experience and the more positive attitude you have towards the aging community. Communication with the elderly is a great way to increase positive relationships with that population, and it helps reduce the stigma surrounding them. Another great way to help is when in doubt, follow the platinum rule. Treat others how they would want to be treated. Not the way you want to be treated, because you have to keep in mind their own culture and their own experiences, and they may not be the same as your own. Culture plays a big part in attitude and behaviors toward aging adults. These attitudes and behaviors in turn affect the aging process of adults. These experiences can be both positive and negative. Negative stigma lead to low self-esteem and self-worth in adults. By creating a more positive atmosphere and treating adults with the respect and reverence they deserve, we can create a more unified and understanding society. So, educate yourselves on all different cultures, and this can help create a more positive environment. Thank you for listening in today.